Have you ever pondered the tale of Mr. and Mrs. Hussein, a poor couple living in a thatched cottage in the Namsan Valley? Here, in the cradle of the valley, they eked out a meagre existence. Mr. Hussein, a man of humble origins, devoted his life to the pursuit of knowledge. For 7 long years he confined himself to a chilly room, his nose buried in the pages of countless books. The world outside continued to turn, oblivious of his relentless pursuit of wisdom. Meanwhile, Mrs. Hussein bore the brunt of their hardship. Her youth was spent in service of others, washing and sewing to earn a pittance, with no spare jacket to shield from the biting cold, and no food to quell the gnawing hunger. Their existence was a testament to the harsh realities of life, an existence where dreams and aspirations were luxuries they could ill afford. As the days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, Mrs. Hussein's patience wore thin. Her spirit was drained, her body weary. One day she found herself at the edge of despair, with tears streaming down her face. She turned to her husband and voiced the agony she had been swallowing for years. "Look here, my good man, what is the use of all your book reading?" she cried. "I've spent my youth in washing and sewing for others, and yet I have no spare jacket or skirt to wear. I've had no food to eat for the past 3 days. I'm hungry and cold. I can't stand it anymore." Her words hung heavy in the air, a stark reminder of their grim reality. Mr. Hussein, the middle-aged scholar, found himself torn away from the world of his books. He closed his book, rose to his feet, and without a word, he went out the door. In response to his wife's heartfelt plea, Mr. Hussein, for the first time in 7 years, closed his book, rose from his seat, and stepped into the outside world. Walking into the heart of the city, Mr. Hussein was on a mission. The bustling city was a stark contrast to his humble abode in the Namsan Valley, but he was undeterred. In the sea of faces, he approached a well-dressed gentleman asking, "Who is the wealthiest man in town?" The city dweller, surprised by the question, pointed to a grand house in the distance and said, "That would be Beyoncé, the millionaire." With newfound determination, Mr. Hussein made his way to the millionaire's house, marching through the 12 gates that led to the glittering tile-roofed mansion. Walking into the guest room, he boldly flung the door open and addressed Beyoncé. "I require 10,000 yang for my commercial business, and I request that you lend me the money." Beyoncé, taken aback by the audacity of the request, considered the man before him. Yet rather than dismiss Mr. Hussein, he asked, "Where shall I send the money?" Hussein replied, "To the Ashong market in care of a commission merchant." "Very well," Beyoncé responded, promising to draw on Kim, the biggest commission merchant in the Ashong market. "You'll receive the money there." With a simple, "Goodbye, sir," Mr. Hussein was gone, leaving behind a room full of astonished guests. His boldness had paid off, and he had secured the capital he needed, proving that even in the face of adversity, confidence and a clear vision can pave the way to success. His encounter with the millionaire was a turning point that changed his life forever. His story serves as a reminder that with courage, determination and a bit of audacity, anyone can turn their dreams into reality. After Mr. Hussein left, the room was buzzing with questions. How could Beyoncé lend such a large sum to a stranger? The air was thick with curiosity as Beyoncé, the town's wealthiest man, stood before his guests, a triumphant expression on his face. In response to their inquiries, Beyoncé began to explain the reasoning behind his seemingly reckless decision. "Even though he was in ragged clothes," Beyoncé began, "he spoke clearly, directly, and without a hint of shame or inferiority. His words hung in the air, a testament to his discerning judgment of character." Beyoncé continued, detailing the potential he saw in Mr. Hussein. "Such a man as he," Beyoncé emphasized, "is either mad or self-confident in doing business, but judging from his dauntless eyes and booming voice, he is an uncommon man with a superhuman brain, worthy of my trust." His guests listened in rapt attention as Beyoncé further expounded his philosophy on wealth and character. "I know money, and I know men," Beyoncé declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "Money often makes a small man, but a man like him makes big money." The room fell silent as the weight of Beyoncé's words settled. Here stood a man who had built a fortune, not merely through his own endeavours, but through his ability to recognise potential in others. A man who was not blinded by the superficiality of appearances, but who looked beyond, to the strength of character and the power of determination. Beyoncé's faith in Mr. Hussein was not born out of naivete or folly, but from a deep understanding of what it takes to rise above one's circumstances. His trust was not in the man's present state, but in the promise of his potential. Beyoncé's final words echoed through the room, a bold proclamation of his confidence in his decision. "A man like him makes big money. I'm only glad to have helped a big man do big business." And with that, Beyoncé had not only defended his decision, but had also taught his guests a valuable lesson about trust, potential, and the true nature of wealth. So what became of Mr. Hussein and his wife? The tale we've woven today is one of desperation, audacity, and trust. A poor couple, Mr. and Mrs. Hussein, living in a humble cottage, endured hardship and hunger. Despite their seemingly hopeless state, Mr. Hussein refused to surrender to despair. Instead, he decided to bet on himself and his ability to change their fate. He approached Beyoncé, the wealthiest man in town, with a bold request for a considerable sum of money. Surprisingly, Beyoncé, seeing the determination in Mr. Hussein's eyes, chose to trust him, demonstrating that sometimes it's not about what you wear or what you own, but the strength of your character and the courage in your voice. The tale of Mr. and Mrs. Hussein reminds us that sometimes all it takes is a little faith and a lot of courage to change our destiny.